Here are my top 7 classroom management tips for very young learners. My first tip is to use routines. So I think almost everybody, when they enter into a classroom, they like a mix of like kind of routines, the familiar, the old, with a little bit of new things mixed in. But however, I think for very young learners, they especially like routines. If it's a little bit chaotic, the student's behavior is going to be chaotic. They won't really know where to sit, what to do, what they should be doing. They won't understand, should I be talking? Should I not be talking? Using routines can kind of alleviate this. So I like to have routines for everything. So how we, like, for example, even pack up at the end of the day, how we line up, how we ask to go to the bathroom, how we begin class, how we sit in a circle, how we share things with the class, etc. So use lots of routines in your classroom. The second tip for very young learners is to teach them how to do things. So my very first year in Korea, I worked at a Korean kindergarten, a Hagwon, and I had these like very young students. They were like even 3 or 4 years old. And I don't know what I was exactly thinking, but I somehow thought, oh, they know how to hold a pencil. They like know how to ask to go to the bathroom. They actually knew nothing. They literally knew nothing. So they didn't know how to hold a pencil. They didn't know like even basic, the simplest English, of course, because they're just little kids. So when you're teaching very young learners, just remember you're starting at ground zero. So if you say pick up your pencil, students may not actually know how to hold a pencil. So you may have to like teach them these things, and they may not know, you see a kid looking quite anxious, quite worried. They don't know how to say bathroom in English, something like that. So kind of just teach students things that can help them kind of function effectively in a classroom. You may be one of their very first teachers, and it may actually just be your job and your responsibility to do this. So kind of going along with that is the next tip: teach classroom vocabulary first. So if you're trying to say open your book to page 17 and students don't know book, open, page 17, it can kind of be a real struggle for everyone to literally be on the same page. Or like pick up your pencil, stand up, sit down, can I go to the bathroom? All of those things. So I like to spend at least a couple classes teaching classroom vocabulary just so the rest of the course will go that much more smoothly. All right, the next tip for teaching very young learners, and this is a tip especially for those, say, teaching in like Korea or Japan, teaching at like Korean kindergartens or Japanese kindergartens or wherever you are in the world, if you're teaching students in a language that you don't share and maybe you don't speak their language, my tip is to not rely on others for everything. So it can be tempting to kind of rely on a co-teacher or the admin at the school to translate for you, to handle all your discipline issues. However, that's not actually going to work out that well long term because students won't really respect you. So just think, I have to rely on my own teaching skills to manage this classroom. And so kind of whatever you need to do in terms of like routines and teaching classroom vocab and just kind of making it work. So don't rely on someone else who shares that language with the students to always do all the things for you. They're going to get annoyed at you. They're going to be like frustrated. They're going to feel like, why are you asking me to do all these things for you? So just try to do what you can to do it yourself. It's going to make your classroom run that much more smoothly, and the people at the school are not going to get annoyed at you. So the fifth tip I have is that seating arrangements are often quite important. So kind of just think carefully about your space and how many students you have. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that there's often students who are kind of like loud and love talking, and then there's a few quiet students. So think about separating the very loud students who love talking. I kind of have a one-strike policy for this. Students, I let them sit wherever they want at the beginning of class. For the first class, and the second they prove to me that they cannot handle sitting with their BFF, it's finished. And then I will move them to another spot. And I often find that putting kind of the loudest, kind of the one that's misbehaving the most, right directly in front of me is often the best case. So I can literally stand beside them for much of the class. Even while I'm lecturing, I'll sometimes put my hand on their desk, and I'm just always right there to kind of prevent any problems or issues. So think about your seating arrangements carefully. All right, the next tip for teaching very young learners is to use a variety of activities. So young learners, they like using routines and like kind of the familiar, and they know what to expect, but then also using a variety of games and activities can kind of just create some interest and kind of make English class or whatever class you're teaching a little bit more exciting, because students will have something to look forward to in your class, and they don't quite know what it is, but they know there's usually something fun to do in that class at the end. All right, the next tip I have for very young learners is to have some early finisher tasks. There's always those one or two students who finish everything in about like a tenth of the time that you've allotted. And good for them. They're like kind of the, smart kids who can like figure out things, or they figured out a system, or they like know how to do things quickly. I was one of those students too. I like doing things at the maximum speed possible generally. But I like to have some early finisher tasks and kind of some routines on how to handle that. Because if students finish things in 1 minute and the rest of the students take 10 minutes, what are they doing for those other 9 minutes? So usually if you don't have anything going on, it's disrupting the other students. So I love to have some tasks, some coloring, some little simple worksheets, that kind of thing to manage that. All right, so those are my tips for teaching very young learners related to classroom management. If you like these ideas, please be sure to check out my book, ESL Classroom Management Tips and Tricks. I think you'll find it so useful. And please hit like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.